Three, two, and one.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and fans of all ages.
Hello, everybody out there in podcast YouTube world. This, of course, is the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. And at the Bunny Rabbit's Hole, we do each and every week is myself, Jason, and my co-host,
Craig.
Pick a central theme. Each week, we talk about that theme until something inspires us to talk about something completely different. And we talk about that for a while until Craig runs out of patience and brings us back on point.
Yes.
With that.
Yes. And as Jason said, we pick a central theme. We actually take like a week, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the topic, and research this topic. And we don't just research the parts of it that fit our narrative. We research both sides. And we try to throw all of that into it, but we also include our opinions, and this is entertainment, and if you're easily offended, now's the time when you show yourself to the door, and don't let hit you where the devil will split you.
Goodbye, and so long to you. All right, so getting started here today, before we even bring out what our topic is, I want to give a big shout out to Founder Dave of Podcoin and the entire Podcoin community.
Yay, Podcoin! Yay!
You were amazing to us for the first couple of days that we were here on Podcoin, and we just love the idea that when you listen to something like this, you can actually earn rewards for listening to two idiots talk about nonsense for 2 hours.
Right.
And we just love it. We love all you. We love the support that you guys have been giving us, and we'll keep throwing out episodes. And please, 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 we're not asking for donations. We're just asking for you to share this.
Right. Yeah, and and our last one second to last one that we uploaded to YouTube got quite a few comments, and we appreciate those and we encourage those, even if it's a differing opinion. And we try to comment to everybody who does. It's not always possible, but we do our best. And I don't always do it with our YouTube channel. I do it with my own. So.
And what we do here is we try to inspire people to have a dialogue, tell us stories about if this topic resonated with you in some way. So we just try to create a community here to where people can share ideas freely and openly. And, this is a safe zone. This is a safe zone for people who with weird ideas in their head, just throw that shit out there on the wall and see what sticks. Because you never know. You may find a soulmate in somebody that threw some shit on the wall. You never know. I don't know. My dog eats shit. Maybe you do too. You guys be pen pals.
Yeah, you got to be careful though, because sometimes when you throw something against the wall, it goes through it.
That's true. That's true. And that is very well the possibility with the characters that are in what we're going to talk about today. Finally, even though it's been out for a long time, Craig, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Today we are talking about the blockbuster film. This was our review, so these are all our opinions. Avengers Endgame. Woo!
Yes, I know 9 million people have done the spoiler thing of Endgame before we got to talk about it. But you know what? We wanted it to run its course, and then we wanted it to be able to sink into everybody's skin. We wanted people to be able to see it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, in which the amount of box office receipts shown that a lot of people saw it more than one time.
Oh, yeah.
I did, and I'm pretty sure you did too. So,
Yep. Before we go into Endgame, though, I got to give a shout-out to a commercial that came on before it at the theater, and it was a Groupon commercial. So this African-American chick is sitting there getting a manicure, and she's talking about how even when your hands are busy, you can still, use your Groupon app, and it shows her bare feet on her phone clicking something, and she's like, and some people are going to like this commercial for the wrong reasons.
Yes. That shows that society still has a sense of humor.
Thank fuck for that.
Yes, exactly. Because we have a sense of humor. We have our own sense of humor. And
yes.
Some like our sense of humor. I like my sense of humor. I like your sense of humor. We like our sense of humor. We like to laugh.
Yep, I'm partial to it.
All
so,
right.
That being said, you take it away.
Okay. If you've lived in a hole under a rock with a mattress over that, for the last 14 years, then you may or may not have heard that there was a big buildup to this huge thing called the MCU. Movies done by Disney about Marvel characters, and they built up to the Infinity Stone ending that we all wanted to see called Endgame. This movie made $356 million in the United States alone its first weekend, and 1.2 billion, that's with a B, US dollars globally. I don't know what that translates to any other currency because I'm not that smart at those calculations. I'm not like Rain Man.
Right.
So it's just, we'll just say a shitload. This movie made money.
Right.
So,
yeah.
With that, there was this huge climax, and I'm going to go out there and say I love this movie 3000.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Before we get started, I've watched tons of reviews of Endgame, and everybody's always, there's some that are for and against. And if you want to watch a really passionate review, besides ours, of course, go watch Kevin Smith's. The director, Kevin Smith from Jay and Silent Bob. Go watch his review of Endgame. This guy is almost in tears at part of this because of how it affected him. Because him, like us, grew up with this shit. So it really hits home for us. But everybody always talks about, some say, or praise it, some knock it, but they talk about fan service. Now, and fan service is basically giving us little Easter eggs or something that we would know from the comic books or something like that, just to, something to appeal to the fans, to make the fans happy. And the people that bitch about it, well, if you want to make a movie and you're basing it off a certain genre that's targeted toward a certain group of people, you're not going to make any money unless you use fan service.
True. True. I can't say it any better. I can't say it any better. And like you said, you go back and listen to our Secret Wars episode where we went back and we did the whole the whole timeline. I can't even say the word chronological today. We did the whole timeline. We went through all 12 issues of the 1984 comic series Secret War. Now, we did that right before Endgame came out because there's a lot of traction to the next Endgame will be, in fact, some version of Secret Wars, where the Infinity War and Endgame were some version of the Infinity Gauntlet series that came out years ago. So the speculation that was going to be. So Craig and I, we both had older brothers, and we grew up idolizing comic books. We would run around in the forest playing like retards, just jumping around punching trees with sticks and stuff. And of course, for some reason, I liked Hawkeye. I don't know, you have a bow, but because all the good ones are taking Daredevil and Spiderman and everybody else, so I'll be Hawkeye. He's a leader.
Yeah, my brother was always Iron Man, and your brother was always Daredevil.
Yeah.
And I was Spider-Man, I think. Spider-Man, I'd go for Wolverine after Wolverine came out.
I took Hawkeye because he's the leader. He's a bastion of hope.
All right, so let's get started. How did the movie start, Jason? I ask him as he takes a drink, folks.
Yes. So it was kind of cool because caught me on the spot there. I wasn't sure that's how we were going to start this. Now, I liked how it all began with the Tony Stark in the thing playing with the football game with the
Didn't it start with Hawkeye's family?
Oh, yeah. God, fuck. I just said I liked Hawkeye because he's a leader, and then I forgot about his family dying. Yes, you're right. It does go back in time to where what happened in the rest of the world when all the other Avengers were out, I don't know, fighting a war, and he's having a picnic in his backyard wanting to know the difference between having mayonnaise or mustard on a hot dog. Teaching his little girl how to shoot a bow. This is what Clint was doing. He's having family hour while the rest of them are over in Wakanda fighting, 7-foot, four-armed, razor-sharp teeth creatures that are
Right.
coming through with all of Thanos' children coming down to fight, but he's having a picnic.
Right.
At
Yeah.
least Ant-Man was stuck in the quantum realm. He had a legitimate reason to not go anywhere with the little net boot thingy, ankle bracelet.
Right. And I know it's kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but Ant-Man being stuck in the quantum realm is really the key to this movie.
It is. Yeah. And so leading into this, after Captain Marvel came out, there was one of the leading speculations was, does Captain Marvel go into the quantum realm and save Scott and bring him out? Well, after we've seen the movie, we find out that is not the case. It is a 14,006,000,000 opportunity that a rat is going to walk across the control panel of this thing and turn on his little accelerator and kick his butt back out of the quantum realm.
Right. But it was bound to happen at some point. Something was going to hit it. If it was that easy where a rat could walk over it, something eventually was going to fall on it. Somebody was going to play with it, and shit would have happened.
So I'm just going to throw this out there right now because this is something that I thought about during the movie. It's like when Doctor Strange in Infinity War was going through and watching all 14 million of those. Was this the one? The rat getting Scott out of the quantum realm? That's the one. That's the one they win.
Could be.
It had nothing to do with Tony Stark and him 2-1 at the very end. But had nothing to do with any of that. I think it's the rat walking across the dashboard at that particular moment in time, hitting that just enough time for Scott to find a marker and a piece of cardboard to write the word help, so that Ken Jeong with a mad mustache reading a book that has a chapter in it about that's called Endgame. I don't know. That's an Easter egg. That's a deep Easter egg there. But anyway, he finally lets him out. He walks away with a radio flyer full of his stuff, and his van's still in Hawk.
Right. All right. So now we got to backtrack. So
I know I'm all over the place.
Hawkeye's with his family. He's teaching his daughter how to shoot a bow. She hits a bullseye. He looks at her and says, "Nice shot, Hawkeye." And then he gets distracted by something and turns around and they're all gone.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you said that because a lot of people that I've listened to said, you know what? That was the first time that he was called Hawkeye. That's not technically true. His wife calls him Hawkeye once earlier in the thing, but nobody in that movie outside of his family ever called him Hawkeye.
Right.
In the beginning of the first Avengers, Dr. Eric Selvig says, "Oh, the Hawk, he's up in his nest." And then he was at the very beginning when they're playing with the Tesseract before we meet Loki for the first time.
Right. So then from there we jump to Tony Stark in outer space with Nebula playing with the little paper football thing.
And there was a part in this that I just loved so much, and it actually hits because you see Nebula, her whole demeanor changes.
Mm-hmm.
Tony says, "You win," and she's like, "What? I win?" Because she's never won. Gamora is always beating her. That was her first win.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Like, anybody of Rick and Morty fame, if you've ever seen that, the dad in there has never won anything either.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like that, and it changes.
Yeah, and then we go to he had probably I termed it his death speech that he's recording for Piper.
Yeah, Pepper.
I don't know why my brain blanked on that, but he's talking to her, just basically saying, we did everything we could. I love you. I miss you. I hope everything works out well for you. Blah blah blah. everything you do. And then he goes and sits in the captain's chair, and he's looking out the window, and you see this beautiful galaxy. I mean, because I took a notepad to the movie with an ink pen. Yeah, I'm that guy. And I learned how to write without looking because I'm watching the screen. But my notes were, the galaxy is beautiful, because this galaxy out there was so beautiful. It had all these interlacing colors, these purples, these yellows, these pinks, these blues, and it was just incredible. Then all of a sudden, this bright yellow light, and then Captain Marvel's basically in his face, in the window.
Yeah, exactly.
And she brings him back to Earth.
So, couple things about that. Now, what he calls her the Blue Meanie, that is actually a reference to the Beatles' Yellow Submarine movie, where the bad guys in that were these amorphic blue meanies in there. Yeah. So that there's a lot of subtle pop culture references that are thrown throughout this whole movie.
There was also a WWE wrestler named the Blue Meanie.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that one either. So now we've already thrown out how Scott got out of the quantum realm. We've already thrown out how Tony makes it back, because I watched the trailer for Endgame once. I saw it when it first aired, or they first said, "Oh, it's online now." I went and watched it. I walked away from the TV when it was on, when the commercial would come on. I didn't want to know anything about this movie, but I watched that first trailer, and when he says, "Yeah, the air runs out tomorrow," it's like, how's he going to get out of this?
Right.
And how her just showing up, I thought was kind of anticlimactic.
I did too, honestly. I'm like, that was like taking the easy way out. But I can see using that as a way, because it's a 3-hour fucking movie. So you got to speed the plot up.
And they already did all this other stuff about, stopping the poisonous gas from coming into there. They rigged the ship to get another 48 hours of power out of it. They did all that. They pretty much exhausted that as far as you really want to go for a movie that's going to wrap up in 3 hours.
Right.
He's a lot.
So she brings him back, and he's back with the Avengers. He's basically hooked up to an IV. He's walking around talking to them, and they're like trying to throw out all these ideas. He's basically, "Fuck you, I'm done."
Yeah.
I just sat in a fucking spaceship without food or water or anything for God knows how long he was there.
I just had a moon crashed on me.
Right. So I don't think, does he go to Thanos' planet with him?
No.
Okay. So he's like, "Fuck you, I'm done." Basically bails, goes back with Pepper, and then the rest of the Avengers, including Captain Marvel, are with Nebula, are trying to figure out what to do, because they want to know where Thanos is, and she's like, "Well, I gotta go," and they're like, "What are you gonna do?" She's like, "I'm gonna go kill Thanos." She's like, "They're like, you know where he is?" And yeah. Those energy spikes in this quantum or this realm over here, the galaxy, and da-da-da.
And Rocket says one of my favorite lines of the whole movie in this time period. He tells Tony Stark, "You're only a genius on this planet."
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, so they all take off. We got Rocket, you got Captain America, Captain Marvel, Thor, Black Widow, Nebula. I think that's it.
That's pretty much everybody that's left.
Right. So they head to Thanos' planet, and I saw this planet, and I'm like, planet's pretty.
Yeah.
Jungles, mountains, kind of reminds me of Wakanda.
Yeah. If you're gonna retire in style.
Right. So they get there, and when they confront Thanos, like, I think it's his
when they first get there, Captain Marvel says, "I'm going to go do recon," and she flies down to the planet and realizes that he's alone. There's no perimeter defenses. There's no nothing. It's just him. So then they come down.
Yep. And so then they go down. They confront him in his home, and like the left side of him is like all charred and disfigured, and he doesn't have the glove on anymore. And they're like, "Where's the stones?" He says, "I used the stones to destroy the stones."
Yeah.
Gone. And then they start fighting him. And is this where he headbutts Captain Marvel and she just stares at him?
No, that's later.
That's later. Okay, okay. So they're all fighting him, and then
that was
they're trying to
Thanos.
Yeah. So they were trying to figure out, how to get the stones back and stuff like that. And he's like, "I destroyed them." Then out of nowhere, shoot, his head gets chopped off by Thor.
And they're like, "What did you do?"
He's like, "I killed Thanos."
I went for the head.
Yep.
And he walks away. And then it's like, okay, well, that was a quick 3 hours.
Right.
Go home now.
Right. And then the screen goes black and words appear across us. And this as if I was watching SpongeBob. Because it was said, and I'm going to say it like it was in SpongeBob, 5 years later.
And Squidward comes out. No, we do see Squidward again later, being the Cullen Mull, but
right, yeah. And so at this point, Black Widow is basically in this command seat, talking to holograms of other Avengers and Captain Marvel and stuff like that, and like Rocket is arguing with Captain Marvel, and she's like, "Oh, I got things to do. I gotta go." She's like, "What are you gonna do? Go get another haircut?" Because at this time she had like a bob haircut or something.
Yeah. She has the haircut that's popularized in the later comic books.
Right.
Sanders' newer style haircut. She has that instead of the longer hair that she had in the
right. And she replies to him, "I have to go to other planets." She's like, "Well, why do you have to go there?" She's like, "Because they don't have you."
Yeah, there's 1,000 other planets out there, and none of them have you.
And he's like, "Oh, that's a good point." And that's what I love about Rocket, is because when stuff like that happens, he owns it. He's like, yeah, you're right.
It's like having 12% of a plan.
Right. And she also has War Machine trying to track down Clinton Barton, Hawkeye, because she's worried about him, because all these cartels and drug rings and stuff like that, every member of them are winding up dead somewhere.
Yes, and this is the persona that Clint takes on later on. Hawkeye takes on this persona called Ronin, where he's no longer just the bow-wielding. Now he's a menacing man with a wicked sword.
Yeah, it was a katana, and he was. And you know what? I'm putting it out there. I like Ronin better than Hawkeye. I think he's fucking badass.
And I think everybody likes Ronin better than Hawkeye. Well, and I'll say this too, because I was a Hawkeye fan, that I'm not sure that they really did Hawkeye justice in these movies.
No, they didn't.
I mean, I love Jeremy Renner. Jeremy Renner's awesome, but I don't necessarily think that they didn't put enough time or effort into the Hawkeye character that they did all the others.
Right. And, the great thing about this whole thing, too, is this movie had this slow emotional build. I mean, there was just – if you're a human being, you felt something watching this movie.
Yes.
If you're capable of feelings, your feelers were on during this movie. And before we get to Ronin, that's when, we already talked about the quantum realm where Ant-Man popped out. But then we go to Stark and his daughter. Well, no, actually, Ant-Man pops out of the quantum realm, then all of a sudden he shows up at Avengers Mansion.
Yeah, but before that, the one thing, there was a really powerful moment with Ant-Man where he's at this memorial in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, where he's looking at, it's kind of like the Vietnam War memorial, except for this is just a bunch of columns with names on it, and he's trying to make sure that his daughter's name is not on there, but he sees his own name, and that
Yeah.
And he goes,
when they're going to his scene, they showed like a stadium that was pretty much in decay with all these cars, abandoned cars out there. And I looked at my kid who I went to the movie with. I'm like, hey, look at all those free cars.
Well, okay, so I get it. It's a post-apocalyptic world, but think about it in these terms. Let's say San Francisco's got 1 million people in it. Okay, now it's only got 500,000. That's still a lot of people that need to move and get around and try to. And they've had 5 years to try to figure out how to do this with less people. I don't. I think the world is a more resilient than what they're showing, because essentially what they kind of created was all the smart people died, went away. Thanos took all of them and left all the morons and the Avengers. Right. Because apparently we don't know how to operate a tow truck or a scrapyard or a car lot, or you had to somehow.
Yeah.
Chains of supply chain still had to move, because each grocery store only has about 3 days worth of food in it. So in these big cities, I mean, it's either going to be complete martial law chaos, just end of days type of situation, or it's gonna go back to normal with just less people.
And I think what they were trying to get across is, yes, it's been 5 years, but all these people are still mourning like it's the first day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, I can get that, but people, like you said, people are more resilient. I mean, I lost my mother. I still feel that. That was like 20 some years ago. I still feel it today, but I can still function.
Yeah.
And Captain America was leading a support group of people who, missed all or missing all their things and trying to move on with their lives. And that's just it. None of these, basically what the MCU is trying to tell us is, if we lose half of the Earth's population, nobody can go on with their lives.
Right. And what I liked about this is one of the first people that you see in Captain America's support group is one of the two directors.
Yeah.
Now, it was the first openly gay character in the MCU. It was Anthony. Was it Anthony?
I can't remember.
Yeah. It was Anthony Russo was the and then there's another thing with one of the other directors in there was like the writer of the Infinity Stone or the Infinity Gauntlet series or something like that.
Okay.
But there was another gentleman that was in that room that was really important to the whole storyline too.
Right.
Outside of the movie.
So then after his support group, he goes back to the Avengers mansion and he's chatting with Black Widow, trying to get her to move on with her life. And she's, hung up on this whole where's Hawkeye thing. And then basically the doorbell rings and it's Ant-Man.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. We met at the airport. I was the guy that got big and then small. I'm Ant-Man. They couldn't. The one thing that I love, Paul Rudd, I think he's a great actor.
Yeah.
But they got it in the movie, the first movie, Ant-Man, and they just stepped away from it. He's extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
He's basically an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
And, they focus on that in the first movie. After that, they're just looking to make him dumb.
After that, he was just a pawn of the Pym, of Hank Pym.
Right, and then he's just basically the slapstick character. I don't like it because there's so much more to him that they could have actually used. And yes, I mean, he came up with the idea. He gets in there and tells them, I've been stuck in the quantum realm for 5 years, blah, blah, blah.
But it was only 5 minutes to me.
Right. He's like, that's key. Time goes differently in the quantum realm. We can use the quantum realm to go back in time.
But there is an anomaly right there, too, because he came out looking the same.
Right.
For me, it was 5 minutes. But Hank's wife comes out 30 years later. She doesn't look the same.
No.
It looks like she spent 30 years in there.
Right. Still looks good, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But right after that, when they're talking about, he's talking about, I know this all sounds crazy. Scarlet Witch has my favorite line in the whole movie. I get emails from a raccoon. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing was, nothing is strange to me.
Right. Yeah. And so at that point, they're like, okay, well, then we need a bigger brain. Which, again, Scott Lang is extremely intelligent. Yes, he may need help.
Yes.
But they're, I mean, and they do the same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a fucking scientist, and they never talk about that in any of the Spider-Man movies.
And they kind of talk about it a little bit when Tony Stark meets him in Civil War.
Right.
Where he's like, you know, who creates this stuff for you? I did it myself. And then he's like stealing stuff from Tony Stark so he can't see it.
Right. Well, but they're doing the same thing to Spider-Man as they're doing to Ant-Man, make him the comedic relief, the bumbling idiot. Okay, Spider-Man is fucking hilarious because he's quick-witted. You know, he's got quick comebacks. You know, he does all these aerial flips. Then he lands and he'll say something smart like, and he sticks the landing. You know, that's Spider-Man, but he is smart as hell.
Yeah. And,
you know,
so real quick side on Spider-Man. So I loved the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, except for the third one. I'm pretending like that one didn't exist because emo Peter Parker was just one of the worst decisions in any superhero movie outside of making Fantastic Four movies.
Right.
But so with that being said, I loved those movies. I love those the first two movies. They were great. The problem with the third one was they brought in too many villains and there wasn't enough time to develop them. And then you had the side story with Peter Parker going through all this crap. It's like, it was just dumb.
Yeah.
Then but I didn't like Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
I didn't
as Spider-Man. I didn't like him as Spider-Man because he wasn't the one from the comic books. So then when Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man movies came out, Spider-Man was finally quick-witted. He was like, but the movies weren't as good.
Right.
I think. I mean, that's just my opinion. I didn't think the movies were up to par. Now, Homecoming, I thought was great. And I really like this kid as Peter Parker. And I think they finally figured it out how to get, in the movie anyway. I mean, he's a kid. He's growing up. He's got the teenage stuff to deal with. He's smart. He's got these new powers. He's trying to deal with this. And I like the decision to make Aunt May Marissa Tomei. But
and it's Tom Holland. It's a new Spider.
But what I didn't like is what you were talking about there is in the Avengers movie, they treat him as a child.
Yeah.
Even though he's just as smart as most of the adults in that room.
I would wager smarter, except for I would say he's at the level of Tony Stark.
Yeah. Or at least Bruce Banner.
So anyways, so back to it. So at this point we flash to a lake with a cottage, and there's Tony Stark walking around looking for his daughter, finds her, and she's wearing the rescue helmet, which is the armor that Pepper wore, and that character was called Rescue.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing with that? That's for your mom's. You know, I made that for your mom." She's like, "Oh, I found it in the garage." He's like, "Yeah, your mom never wears anything I make her. You can go ahead."
Right. She never wears anything I make her.
So he's playing with her, and he has this great relationship with his daughter. It's really a beautiful moment to see somebody who has put everything out to help everybody all the time, taking some time for himself to enjoy his family.
And that little kid was adorable.
Oh, God, yes, she was. And so at that point, it was Captain America, Black Widow, and Ant-Man show up at his cottage.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he's happy to see him, but not happy to see him because he knows they're going to say some shit.
Because they only show up when they need something.
Right. So they come out and they talk to him, and, you know, Scott brings up or Ant-Man, Scott Lang, whatever you want to call him, brings up the idea of time travel, you know, using this. And I think that at one point in the movie, they reference all of these. Oh no, this is later. This is later
Yeah.
on when they reference all these movies. So they're talking about time travel and stuff like that, and he's like, "I'm not interested. I'm enjoying my time with my family. I don't want anything to do with it. Time travel's fucked up. Don't do it. It's stupid. You're gonna fuck shit up." So at that point, his daughter comes back over to them, and she says, "Mom sent me to rescue." And he's like, "Your mom's so smart." She's like, "Okay, guys, it's lunchtime. There's 6 places set. You can stay if you don't talk shop."
Yeah. But in that line, what is the suit that Pepper wears called?
Rescue.
And what did he send her to do? What did she send her to do?
Rescue.
And what is the little girl's name?
Is it Morgan?
Morgan. And if you remember in the park, when just before Tony's telling Pepper that he had this dream about they're going to have a child, and he said they named it after her uncle, that eccentric one, Morgan.
Oh.
In the next movie, the child is named Morgan. That's the scene right before Doctor Strange comes out, and we see that Bruce has made it back to Earth.
I just got my feelers hurting. Don't touch me. I didn't. That none of that clicked with me. But yeah, and it's just this is just shows how brilliant these fucking guys are.
Yeah.
To make the movie, I mean, so much. There's so much in it that you have to watch it so many times to catch everything.
Exactly, and there's so much in it that I start at the wrong spot.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a 3-hour movie. I felt like I was there for a half an hour.
Exactly, that's what I felt too. I was walking out with some people that I happen to know in the theater, and I'm like, that was 3 hours? Really? That was 3 hours? I know, it didn't feel like 3 hours.
Right. So anyways, all right, we got to get back on track. So they're like, well, shit, what are we going to do? Stark's not going to help us. They're like, well, we got to go find another big brain. So at that point, who do they go find, Jason?
They find, and I love this, and this made up for the fact that I didn't like Banner and Hulk in Infinity War because they pretty much weren't in it. Hulk beat up at the beginning, and then there was this like inner turmoil. So when you see him sitting in a diner, it's Professor Hulk.
Right.
It's
looking like Shrek.
Yeah. Yes. Looking very much like Shrek.
That pissed me off.
Yeah.
They could have done better, but I get it.
It could have looked. He could have looked better. But I mean, but I liked the fact that they decided to coexist, and this happens. It happened in the comic book. They coexisted for quite a while, and then I don't remember where it was. It's like when the advent of the Red Hulk came out, they like ripped apart again. And
right.
That could be wrong too. I don't remember.
See, now I thought Ragnarok they left a possibility of Planet Hulk coming after that, but now that they come together, they have to break apart again. I think to do because the best way to sum up Planet Hulk is it's like Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, it was like Doctor Strange and some others come together and they realize that the Earth cannot have Hulk anymore. So they come together. They find a planet that Hulk can go to and just be Hulk and just Hulk out and just smash all the time because he was destroying the Earth. So they send him out there, and it was kind of done in Ragnarok with the gladiator thing because that does happen in the Planet Hulk comic book. But it's a great story.
Planet Hulk,
he made a great movie.
Yeah, Planet Hulk, he ends up running the planet. So anyway, so they're talking with him, and he's like, he's not really into it, but he looks like he's could be swayed. Then some kids come up to him, and they want to take a selfie with him and stuff like that. And I'll let you talk about what happens there.
So this is kind of funny because he's like taking this out, or he gives Scott Lang the phone, and he's sitting there, he's posing with him. It's like, hey, eat your vegetables. He's trying to be like all happy-go-lucky, and he's like, this is Ant-Man. You want a picture of Ant-Man? Oh, yeah, you do. You want a picture of Ant-Man? And they keep going back and forth. The kids don't really know who Scott Lang is because these kids are probably like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old, and the whole airport thing happened, at least 5 years ago, probably 2 years before that, because it was before Wakanda, so I had to go before that even, I guess. I'm losing my train of thought. So it was before that. So these kids were probably like 3 or 4 years old when the Berlin airport fight happened in Civil War. So these kids don't know who Ant-Man was. They don't remember the giant man growing tall, because a lot of other really weird things have happened in the world since then. Aliens have come out in New York. Gods have existed. Now we've got dark elves with a huge ship that shows up and blows up half of London. Thanos happened, half of the population. So these kids don't remember one little incident that happened in one airport in Berlin. So they're still trying. Hulk is like, no, you want to picture Ant-Man? You want to picture? No, they don't. No, they don't.
They would have been about 2 years old when all that shit.
Exactly. So they don't remember that shit.
Right. Yeah. So after that, they're all back at Avengers Mansion, after that scene, we flash back to the cottage on the lake, and Tony Stark's basically in his lab playing around with something, and he's like, "Shit, I figured it out."
Yeah.
So he goes and talks to Pepper, and he's like, they're just chit-chatting. He's like, well, she's like, I figured it out. She's like, figured it out what? He's like, time travel. And she's like, so what are you going to do? He's like, I don't know. Basically saying, I don't know. He wants her to basically make the decision for him. And I believe she did.
Mm-hmm. Well, because she says a lot of people lost everything.
Yep.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah, because he's like, I don't want to lose this. She's like, well, a lot of people lost everything.
Yeah. And so what we learn in the future in this movie is it doesn't change.
Right.
He would still have his daughter. He would still have his wife. He would still have, as long as he was to survive, he still would have that, because it's now, right. X and Y and Z axes from the middle of the time warp continuum. I'm just throwing out words that sound smart.
But basically, I'm gonna interject here. So basically, this movie tells you that every other time traveling movie in existence.
We might as well, let's just jump to that, because that's the big point.
We're back to Avengers Mansion, and all of the Avengers are there, including War Machine and everybody else, and everybody except for Captain Marvel is there.
Yes.
And Hawkeye wasn't there yet either, because they find Hawkeye after this.
Yeah.
So, or no, Hawkeye was there.
Yes, they do find him earlier than that, because she goes and finds Ronan in Tokyo.
Yep.
Right after the
Yakuza or something.
Yeah. There's actually a name for it. There was the group that he kills in that particular moment in time is actually I forget what I have it here somewhere. It's actually a big part of the Ronin story.
Right.
It's like they're like a cybernetic version of the Yakuza.
Right. And so she went and she retrieved him, talked him into coming with her. He didn't want to, blah, blah, blah. That's not really it. I mean, it's an important part of the movie, but it's not, we only have so much time. So back at Avengers Mansion, and Stark shows up.
Before Stark shows up, though, Professor Hulk is using the information that he gets from Scott Lang to try time travel first. Because Tony's not involved, so they're going to try it themselves.
Right.
First, they send Scott through his little the machine that he's got in his truck or in the back of his van. He comes back, he travels back a couple minutes. To us, it's only like 1 second. He comes back out. He's a teenager. He's like, "What's going on?" So they send him back in. He comes back, and he's an old man.
Right.
He comes back. He's a baby. What the hell? So they send him back. He finally comes back. He's himself again, and he's like, "I don't know which one it was, baby me or old me, but somebody peed my pants.
Right. And that right there is when Stark shows up.
Yes.
And basically tells them what they're doing wrong.
So
and
did he come back a baby? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because then he tells them about some paradox.
Yeah. And basically what he says is, if it's not like, the butterfly effect, stuff like that, what we talk about, where if you go back in time and kill a butterfly, it changes the course of history.
Yeah.
It changes your timeline or something like that. I can't remember how he explained it. It was pretty intricate, and my brain just shut off for a second. I don't know what happened to it.
But this is when you get Scott Lang and Colonel James Rhodes start listing off all the time movies that we knew about.
So it's not like Back to the Future? No.
Yeah.
It's not.
I got a list of them, actually.
Okay.
Wrinkle in Time, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Time After Time, Terminator, Time Cop, Hot Tub Time Machine, Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, he's like, everything you know about time travel is bullshit.
Oh, and Scott says Die Hard. Oh, no, wait, that wasn't a time travel movie.
But it should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and also, Stark says my favorite line of the movie. When he shows up there and he's talking to Captain America, he looks at, they're talking about it, and they're talking about things they've lost and stuff like that, and he says, resentment is corrosive, and I hate it.
Yeah, that's a great line too. That's a great line too. So yeah, we're gonna kind of jump forward a little bit because Stark fixes everything, creates a machine, but they've only got so many PIM particles, which is the little things that power the Ant-Man suit, which powering they now all have Ant-Man suits. So they do the first test, and now because Ronan / Hawkeye / Clinton Barton has lost everything, he's lost his entire family, he volunteers to go because Ant-Man's all jittery about it. So Clint's got nothing to lose. He jumps in. Boom. He travels back in time. He's at his house.
Right.
The same house that we saw at the very beginning where he's having the picnic while everybody else is fighting in Wakanda. He's sitting there and he's like, picks up his son's ball glove. He yells something. He yells out his daughter's name. And
then, he could hear her in the house.
Yeah. Because he after she shot the arrow, he turned around. Boom. She's gone. She's just dusted out. And then he comes back. But the most important thing is he's holding his son's ball glove. So this is when they realize that, yes, it is possible for us to go back in time. It does work, and we can bring shit back with us. So we can go back and get the stones and then come back. Right.
Yeah. So, and also before they did the jump, because they only have so many PIM particles, Ant-Man is like, we only have enough for 2 trial runs. And he goes to put it in there. But he disappears and comes back. He's like, one trial.
Yeah, he did want Hulk to do it because his big hands. He's like, we only have so many of these, and then he screws up.
Right. So then they split into teams because they figure out, okay, there is a point in time where a couple of the stones were in New York.
Yeah, 3 of the stones were in New York at the exact same year, at the same time.
And then they sent, what was it? They sent Hawkeye and Black Widow to
Boromir to get the Soul Stone.
Right. And then Thor and Rocket went to Asgard, back in time to Asgard to get the stone from Jane, which I can't remember which stone it was.
There's the Reality Stone.
Yeah.
Which is the
so
we did miss one point that shocked everybody in this whole movie. Is when we go to, and I got the name of the town. Yes, I do. Tunsberg, Norway.
Oh, yeah, to see Thor.
Yes. So when they show up to Tunsberg, Norway, there's a big sign on there that says New Asgard. and this is where they're going to go see Thor. Now, if you don't remember, at the very beginning of Captain America, the first Avenger, when Red Skull gets the Tesseract, he's actually in Tunsberg, Norway. So the town that started Captain America off is the town that Asgard moved to in the future. So there's huge Norse roots there. But when Professor Hulk and it's Rocket, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go there. They meet Valkyrie. She's like, he's not gonna see you. He's not himself. He comes out when he gets supplies, and she's pointing at a whole bunch of kegs.
Right.
So that they go to his house, and the person that answers the door is an overweight, Big Lebowski looking dude who resembles and sounds like Thor, but has got a huge pot belly, and he's complaining about his cable being out.
Yeah. Are you guys from the cable company? I've been calling you guys for weeks.
So Thor, after chopping Thanos' head off, just went downhill, and he's chubby for the rest of the movie.
I dubbed him Fat Thor.
Yes.
At the theater. That's what I wrote down in my notes. Says Fat Thor. And what's the rock guy's name? I can never remember it. Core. So Core's playing, what's the game?
Fortnite. And
some kid is bullying him in the game. And he's like, Thor, the kid's doing it again to me. Can you do something to help me? So Thor grabs the mic and goes, hey, no, whatever your name is. This is Thor, the god of thunder. You get off this game, or I'm coming to your house, and I'm going to destroy your Xbox, everything else, and you. I'm the god of thunder. Thanks, Thor.
And one of the things I loved was in Rocket's little speech, to Thor to help him come back. He starts talking about all the people that he lost, because Thor talks about all the people he lost. So Rocket's talking about all the people he lost, like Quill and Gamora and the chick with the antenna.
Right.
He doesn't even know Mantis's name. I think that's great.
Drax.
And of course, Groot.
Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, skipping forward, there are 3 groups that are going out really quick. They fight amongst each other, on who's going to die, but Black Widow ends up dying.
Right. It was
the Stone Stone.
my notes on that one was, I'm going to die. No, I'm going to die. No, I'm going to die. No, I'm going to die. Yeah, and when so Ant-Man is teamed up with Iron Man, and he sends him inside Iron Man's armor. He's shrunk down, and I love his line. He's like, okay, I'm going inside you. Oh, and so he goes in and basically gives the past Tony Stark a heart attack by disconnecting a cable.
Yeah.
And then Thor charges him up with a hammer and all that shit. But then then it flashes to Captain America, because during all this stuff they were supposed to get the Tesseract. They screwed up. Loki escaped, took off with the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Had to get the staff that Loki had the Tesseract in. So Captain America, goes into the elevator where all of the guys are, and he recognizes all of them. And like in the previous movies where he had to fight them in the elevator, this time he's like, guys, it's okay. Secretary sent me. And he goes up to the leader and whispers in his ear, Hail Hydra, which is an Easter egg. It's a shout out to Secret Empire.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where Cap was a Hydra agent.
Where Cap was raised as a Hydra agent.
Yes.
So when Loki takes the Tesseract and then disappears, this they have to go through a whole bunch of series, but they have to go back and they have to find another time when they can get the Tesseract. This is actually another Easter egg. It's leading into Disney's opening their own streaming service. Now, with the streaming service, you're going to get MCU shows like the network or the Netflix ones, like Daredevil and the Punisher, and then those other pieces of shit that they have. I like Daredevil and I liked Punisher. I wasn't too fond of the other ones, but they didn't really have much to do with the movies themselves. But when Disney streaming comes out, there's supposedly a Black Widow one in the works. There's a Loki one in the works, and then there's a couple others. But the Loki one centers around him stealing the Tesseract. So that was actually the intro to this. And they're all going to play parts of what's going to happen in the future of the movies. So now you have to get the streaming service to understand all the continuity that's going on. So they're expanding the world even bigger to try to get Disney's clutches into everything.
And there's good news, because once they start it up, you can basically cancel your Netflix service, because that won't be worth anything, and just put that money into a Disney streaming service.
Exactly.
But yeah, and then Cap gets out of the elevator with the case and runs into himself from the past.
Now, this is important because Back to the Future said if you were to come in contact with yourself, you could destroy the entire universe.
Yes. And that's not the only movie that said that. Other movies have said, yeah, if you see yourself, stay away. Because if you, I've seen some time traveling movie where they touched their past self, and they basically got sucked into like a wormhole and turned inside out and just poof, disappeared. And erased from existence completely.
Right, just like the picture in Back to the Future. They're gone forever. But Cap has a full-on fight with himself.
Yeah, and in my notes I said, I'm kicking my own ass.
Yeah, that's America's ass.
Yeah, America's ass.
And if you want to see America's ass, watch. That's not another teen movie, because he's covered in whipped cream in that movie, and that's as far as I'll go with that.
Right. But yeah, so at that point, okay, they lost the shit, so they don't have enough Pym particles, so they're trying to figure out what the fuck do we do now. And then Tony Stark has a brainstorm. He's like, I know where we can go. We can get more Pym particles, and we can get the Tesseract.
Yes, he knows where the Tesseract's at and where Dr. Hank Pym happened to be at the exact same time.
Right.
One thing he didn't know at the time was another person that's going to be there.
Right.
And this person comes down, and it's kind of funny because they split up, and he goes down. One goes after the particles, the other goes after the Tesseract. Tony goes after the Tesseract. When he goes down to the laboratory in the bunker, which is the same bunker from, was it Winter Soldier?
I think so.
That they have Arlen Zola.
Yep.
So the short little scientist from the first Avengers, the Captain America first movie,
basically Baron Zemo, I believe, in the comic book,
is he the one he transforms his whole consciousness onto a bunch of punch cards and computer cards, and that's the same bunker that houses that. And he anyway, so they realize that that's the base of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he goes down, finds the Tesseract, puts it in a suit, and he hears somebody, hey, have you seen Arlen Zola? And he turns around and it's like, it's his dad.
Right.
So the whole barf, the augmented reality thing that he created to be able to channel or, have these conversations with his parents and go through all this therapy for $600 million.
Right.
Comes into reality because he actually went back in time and talked to his dad about being a parent.
Right. Yeah, because it was right as he was about to be born, because his dad was going to, meet up with his wife, Tony's mom, and talk about that. And it's funny because they talk all the way out to his car, and then Tony gives him a hug, and he's like, "Thank you for what you do for our country." Yeah. And then he walks off, and a guy opens the door for him, and he's like, "Who is that, Mr. Stark?" And he's like, "I don't know, Jarvis." And he's like, and Jarvis like, "Oh, he had a beatnik beard or a hippie beard." Yeah. And that's when you realize, Jarvis, this is the Jarvis that raised Tony Stark.
Yes. and that is the basis for the AI protocols that he created for the Iron Man suit, which in turn became part of Vision.
Or if you read the comic books when we were kids, there was an actual Jarvis character who was the butler for the Avengers.
Yes.
But let's go over to Tony did his part. Captain America had to get the Pym particles, and the way he did it was just hilarious. Because he gets onto a phone line, calls in, and Michael Douglas, a young Michael Douglas, answers the phone. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Yeah, I'm here." And he's like, "Mr. Pym, a crate was delivered, and nobody really wants to go near it." He's like, "You didn't open it, did you?" "Well, it's glowing green, and some of the guys are getting sick." He's like, "I'll be right there."
So he runs out, and in this scene too is kind of cool because you see the original Ant-Man helmet.
Yep.
It doesn't look like the one that's in there, but it's got like this tube that comes out in the front of the mouth. It looks more like a mandible, like more like an ant.
Right.
You see that sitting on the shelf, and then he grabs a bunch of the Pym particles. They meet up.
Oh wait, there's a very important part right here, a very emotional part. As he's there and he's getting that stuff, he comes up to this window, and this window is the name Agent Carter, and inside is Haley Atwell, who played Agent Carter, and who is Captain America's major love interest. And it's just seeing that longing for her, that wanting to go in there and talk to her and stuff like that, but knowing that he can't because he'll fuck shit up.
Mm-hmm.
It was really touching. Really touching.
So there's another important part that I've got to throw out there. That when he's in the elevator going down, Yvette Nicole Brown is in the elevator with him, and she's talking to him a little bit, which it's not really that important who the actress is at this point, but she is pretty much everybody from the cast of Community were in one of these movies somewhere, because the Russo brothers got their start as executive producers and directors of the show Community with Joel McHale, and then there was Chevy Chase and Yvette Nicole, and but
also it was kind of, I mean, not to interrupt you, but was it last year or the year before, there was that movie about the African American women who worked for NASA?
Yeah.
To me, that was like a shout out to that movie too, because she was in that movie.
Yeah. That's a good point there too. But yeah, so because we mentioned Ken Jeong earlier, he was from Community. Oh crap, what's his name? There's the two younger guys.
Oh, Donald Glover and
Glover is in Spiderman movie.
Yep, and then the Middle Eastern guy, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either, but he is in Winter Soldier.
Okay. What was Joel McHale in it?
He was. He played as a SHIELD agent in I can't remember which one.
Okay. It don't matter.
He's in there somewhere. Anyway, long story short, they succeed. But there was a third member of their party that was also in New York that had to go get the Time Stone. So, So Hulk Professor Hulk is in full Hulk uniform, or full Hulk. Then he's like, all right.
Yeah, I'm not as creative as you. I just called him Smart Hulk.
So he's like, all right, I'll do it. It seems stupid, and then he rips his shirt off and he walks over and he pounds on the top of a car. It's like, rawr, bam.
Picks up a motorcycle and tosses it.
Because you see the other Hulk who's jumping up, picks up a truck, slams it down on a bunch of the Chitauri, and just going ape shit. And he's like, fine, I'll play the part. But he goes and he goes to the Bleecker Street, where the Bleecker Street magician will live in 5 years,
right?
As Tony Stark called him. But he goes there, and it's the Ancient One. Tilda Swinton's character is there, and he's like, I'm looking for Doctor Strange. She's like, you're 5 years too early.
Right.
He's performing a surgery just down the road, which is kind of cool that she saw her future and when she was going to die, but she knew. It kind of changes the Doctor Strange movie too, because she knew all of that was going to unfold.
Yep.
Up until the time of her death.
Yeah, and she was called the Ancient One.
What did I say?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Yeah, she's the Ancient One.
I don't think you actually did say who she was.
I said something, but I probably said the Yellow One or something. That Yellow Bastard, which is another reference that they make in this. Anyway, so they talk, and she explains how time will change, and it. And
you missed the most important part.
What part? Oh yeah, he's gonna take it from her. Hulk is gonna take it from her, and then she does the same thing that she did to Doctor Strange, and pushes his body out into the ethereal plane. So he's no longer in the Hulk body. He's just Bruce Banner in ethereal form, walking around trying to explain to her. He's like, "Look, we need the stone, lady. Come on." And then she explains to him how time works, so that kind of makes that whole all the time movies up to this point were bullshit.
Right.
Kind of real. And then he explains to her that when we're done, we can go back and put the stones back in their own timeline, making time go back.
Right. Well, also the important thing is she's like, I can't give this to you. It'll mess up my timeline. And he's like, well, then why did Doctor Strange give it away? And she's just like flabbergasted. She's like, he's supposed to be the best of us.
Why would he give it to you if?
Right. So
she willingly gives him the time stone. Now this is the part that I watched this movie with my son the first time, and I leaned over to him and was like, now how the hell are all these people touching a stone when it took 5 Guardians of the Galaxy, one of them being part celestial, the other one being one of the strongest warriors in the galaxy, Drax the Destroyer, and it took 5 of them to control the power of that stone for just a couple seconds.
Right. I had the same problem.
So
until Mike explained it to me.
Was it just Power Stone?
Yep.
Okay. Now that makes sense if it's just the Power Stone, because I have heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah, but because the other stones that you could touch and you could wield and stuff like that, because it was bugging me too, because throughout all this, up to this point in this movie, everybody's just fucking grabbing stones left and right. I'm like, what the fuck? I thought it was supposed to kill you if you did that.
Yeah, because Barton grabs the Soul Stone.
Right.
And he's just a human. That's straight human. I mean,
yeah, he's got no powers, nothing.
Because we watched what happened to the girl who grabs it from the collector's assistant.
Yeah.
And she explodes.
Yep. That was the Power Stone, though. That's the one the Guardians got.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And after all that, we go to Thor and Rocket going to Asgard, and basically Thor reunites with his mom, and she's like, "You're not today, Thor, are you?" And he's like, yeah, I am. She's like, boy, I was raised by witches. Okay, no, I'm from the future.
Right. And the cool thing about this was Rene Russo, who plays Thor's mom, actually has more lines in this movie than she did in all of the Thor movies combined. And she was a really cool character in this movie.
Yeah, and she's an amazing actress. Mm-hmm. I mean, why would you? If you got somebody with that amount of talent, why wouldn't you give them some lines? So they have their little teet-a-teet, whatever. Rocket gets the Ether Stone or whatever it's called from Jane Foster. And then we go to War Machine and Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
They went after the other stone.
Which is the Power Stone, which is the one that Quill gets in the very beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy. When he goes to the palace. I guess they called it like the fortress of the Power Stone or something like that.
Right. And basically, at the beginning, he's dancing around singing blah, 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 and they just knock him out.
Like, he's an idiot.
But when they're doing all this time travel stuff is when you get the Stan Lee cameo and it's the year 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And he's driving this car, and the bumper sticker says, he's got a bumper sticker that says Nuff said, and his license plate is 420 LRO.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, that's the Stan cameo, which was recorded before he died. It wasn't CGI. I had known that his cameo was going to be in this movie well before it happened. But
well,
so War. Go ahead.
No, they said before Captain Marvel came out that he had recorded all of his, after he died and before that came out, they said he did record all of his things, that Endgame would be his last one. Even if he did live past that, that was going to be his last cameo.
Right. I mean, he was old. Stan Lee, rest his soul, he lived a full life. I was sad when he passed, but he was 94 years old, and look at all he's achieved. He has lived a full life. His time on this plane is just over.
Yeah, he gave us countless hours of joy. Right.
He screwed over a bunch of people in his time, too, but everybody makes mistakes.
That's right.
So, we got to touch on the War Machine and Nebula, and then Thanos being there with the other Nebula.
Yes.
So, yeah, you do it, because I'm jumbled on that one.
So, essentially, what ends up happening is when our Nebula, the good Nebula, meets or comes back, the Nebula that's being that's with Thanos at this time period, because they go back in time. So this is Nebula from Endgame goes back and sees Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Right.
And she is a different machine altogether. She's a being / and all of her brain has been replaced by computers, whatever that they use. So she's actually has a hard drive type of thing that's going on. When she comes to this timeline, old Nebula now has the same memories as new Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, because their hard drives linked up, and they were analyzing her, they're repairing her because she lost another battle to Gamora, and she started fritzing out. So that's when they figured that part out.
And so this is how Thanos gets aware of the plan to foil his plan. So he knows that he accomplished his goal, and now he knows that all of the stones are going to be in the same place at the same time. So now he doesn't have to go through all the other stuff of the early part of Infinity War.
Right.
They did the work for him.
Right. So at this point, they go and capture the present day Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
And they're examining her, and the only visual difference between these two is like a gold thing across her temple area.
Yeah.
Which old Nebula takes off her and pops on herself and goes and takes her place.
It's kind of like you've seen it in countless amounts of cartoons, old TV shows, old thing where it's a Clark Kent thing. You put on a pair of glasses, I'm a different person. So she just changes the racing stripe, and now she's a different Nebula.
Right. So she goes and takes the place and goes back and joins back up with War Machine. And they go back and meet up with the Avengers, and they're all back together in present day. And they're all sitting in Avengers Mansion, chit-chatting, trying to figure out what they're going to do and who's going to wield it. And Thor's like, oh, it's got to be me. Obviously, I'm the strongest. And, Tony Stark's, well, I'm the smartest. And Hulk's like, it's got to be me because, you saw what, they talked about what happened with Thanos and how he was all disfigured and burnt. And he's like, the radiation is gamma radiation. I'm the only one that can survive it.
I was born of gamma radiation. This is gamma radiation. It's made for me.
Right. So, at that point, they had made like a big Iron Man like glove,
mm-hmm.
and they had the stones all put on there, and he's getting ready to put it on, and then kaboom! What happened?
So Thanos' ship comes over there and just fucks up the Avengers mansion.
Yep.
The whole compound just blows it to bits. So we got heroes flying over this way. Some are submerged in the ground. Some are thrown out into the,
He snapped first, though, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. So, yeah. So, Hulk puts on the glove, snaps, and then they're sitting there. And I'm sorry, guys. I fucked this up. This is on me. But he snaps, and they look out the window. Birds are flying. Like, does anything happen? And then the phone rings, and Hawkeye looks over, and it's his wife calling him.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I forgot that part, too. It's kind of important.
Yeah. So, obviously, people are back, and then, boom, Thanos.
Yeah. Then crash, boom, pow. Everything's fucked up. The riders are on the ground. They're trying to find the Infinity Glove.
Right. And this is where we get another Easter egg, which is a flashback to Secret Wars of Hulk holding up the entire mountain by himself. He is holding up the entire building by himself.
Holding up the entire building. But this time it's not 4 billion tons. It's just, a couple hundred tons of steel and concrete. But because underneath there, you have Hawkeye, you have who else was down there with him?
Was it Ant-Man?
Yeah, in the tunnels. Yeah, he goes back to help. But anyway, they've got the glove down there. They're being chased by the same creatures that were attacking them in Wakanda.
Right.
Until Thor got there, and just chaos is coming.
Yep.
Until a being comes back to Earth.
Right.
And returns and brings his children.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with this building blowing up. They don't even have time to think on whether or not if the snap actually brought anybody back.
Right.
So outside of that, next thing you know, boom, we've got Captain America is out in front, and Thanos is there. Tony Stark is there. Thor, not yet, right?
No. Well, yeah, I think so. I think it was those three because it came down to basically one-on-one Captain America and Thanos at one point.
Yeah. So we'll skip to that because
it gets confusing. You if you haven't at this point, you guys seen the movie, you know what happens.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a part in this where Cap's getting the shit kicked out of him by Thanos, and he holds up his shield, and Thanos is just hitting it with a sword, and it's just chopping the shield to bits, which is a call. It's a callback to one of the comic books where Thanos breaks the shield.
Right, and it's also, I mean, the sword that he's using looks like a helicopter blade.
Yeah, which actually, that sword was actually in the Infinity War teaser stuff, because I watched. Okay, going into this movie, I watched none of this shit. But going into Infinity War, I watched everything I could get my hands on. And these crazy, crazy sons of bitches will go out and find pictures of the toys that are being developed overseas, take pictures of them so they can try to figure out what the movie's going to be like. It's like, if you're going that far to try to figure out what's going to happen in the movie, then, man, you got too much time on your hands.
Yeah. No shit.
Because
I'd rather just movie to come out. And then
a picture of that sword as a prop in one of the Thanos toys that was being released in overseas somewhere. And so they had that picture of that, but you didn't really see the sword in action until this moment.
Right. And so yeah, so they're fighting, and Thanos has his sword down on the handle of Stormbreaker, which is Thor's axe, and Thor's trying to hold him off. You know, one thing we forgot, when Thor went back in time, he got Mjolnir back.
Yes. So he stops, and it's funny because Rocket's looking at him while he's holding his arm out, and his mom and Thor's mom says, Frida says, sometimes it takes a minute. And then
right.
boom, back into his hands, and then they time travel back. So he's got both,
right, and he's fighting
and Mjolnir, and
and so now he's down, and Thanos has the blade. He's holding him off with Stormbreaker, and that blade is getting closer and closer and closer to his face. Then all of a sudden, boom! Something hits Thanos, knocks him off him, and then it flashes back to Captain America with his hand up with Mjolnir in his hand.
Yes.
Just getting back to his hand. And Thor is like, I knew it!
Yeah. Because that was a callback to Age of Ultron, where they're all trying to lift the hammer off the table, and when Cap does it, it slightly moves.
Right.
So, and when that happened in the theater, when I first saw that, fluids came out of my body.
Right.
Because I was more than excited. I was drooling. It was exciting to see, because shortly after that becomes one of my favorite visuals in the whole thing. Because you've got Thor down, Iron Man's down, all the rest of the Avengers are pretty much underneath that building, trying to get out, and they're trying to keep the gauntlet away from Thanos.
Right.
This time, so
yeah, they're playing away.
Yeah, so he starts fighting Thanos, and then it's like Cap says, he just says his line, "I could do this all day." Line again, but then there's this visual, because all of Thanos' army,
yep,
is standing in front of, and on this cliffside. Thanos is there. He's got whether the Black Order, the children of Thanos, they're all standing there, and he's standing on a cliff, on a huge rock, alone, with in front of Thanos' army, shield broken, Thor's hammer. It's like
blood dripping, and just refusing to give up, like the true fucking hero that Captain America truly is.
Like the Steve Rogers fighting for a girl's honor in the alleyway, being beaten up by bullies.
Yep. And so then all of a sudden, in a little earpiece, he hears something. He's like, Cap, is that you? And he's like, what? Sam? And he hears, on your left, which is a reference back a couple movies
to Winter Soldier.
Yep.
When they were running in Washington, D.C., Cap kept lapping him.
And saying, on your left, on your left.
Don't say it. Don't say it. You ran like 13 miles in 30 minutes, so I got a late start.
Yep. And so all of these time holes open up. I don't know, time holes, portals, whatever the fuck they were.
They're the Doctor Strange, like, portals.
Yep. And everybody from Doctor Strange, the order that he's with, because you had the people that were in the Doctor Strange movie. You had, Black Panther and all the people from Wakanda. You had Spiderman shows up. Everybody who has disappeared shows up except for
Guardians.
Black Widow.
All the Guardians of the Galaxy are there. I mean, it was intense. But not only that, you have Pepper Potts' rescue.
Yes.
Also shows up at this point. And it's the first time you see her in this. But there's something that I was really confused, and or maybe they just made a mistake and they wanted to forget it. But in the end of Iron Man 3, she had the extremist power. She had the ability to, to heat her body up and shoot fire because she was Eldritch Killian with all that. None of that was ever mentioned again. And now she's in an Iron Man suit, and that's her only power.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of weird that they just kind of glossed over all of that, but it's cool.
Yeah, so now they're all playing Keep Away, and Spider-Man finds Tony Stark, and he's like, hey, Tony, I'm here. We were in space with Doctor Strange, and he said this, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, we're needed. And I'm like, what? And then Tony hugs him.
Yes.
And that's all Spider-Man.
Callback because when Tony was when he's figuring out time travel, there's two pictures that were on shelves there. There's a picture of his dad, and there's a picture of him with Peter Parker holding his award upside down.
Yeah, so he does that, and he gives Peter the gauntlet with the Infinity Stones and says, don't let him get it. And he's taken off, and he's running, and he's running and being Spider-Man, flippy doos and all this other shit all over the place, and then he gets kind of batted out of the air, and he falls down, and he's like, he's looking, he's like, shit, I'm fucked. And then there's Rescue, Pepper Potts.
Mm-hmm.
Shows up, and she's like, it's okay, kid, we got you. Then behind her, all the women of the MCU current, Black Widow, are there. And in my notes, I'm like, women stand strong.
Oh yeah, because you had Scarlet Witch, you had Rescue, as you said, you had Valkyrie, you had
Captain
Marvel, which her entrance was huge.
Yes,
because within like 3 seconds, she destroys Thanos' huge ship. And if you don't remember his ship, at the end of Ragnarok, when Thor's ship with all the Asgardians that they used to escape Hela in Asgard is flying there, and it looks like a shoebox in front of a semi-trailer.
Right.
Floating by Thanos' ship. She just goes through, boom, boom, flies through it, ship done. Thanos is like, what the is that?
Yep. And so they're all standing there with them, and basically gather him up, and they're protecting him. And it also has Okoye and stuff like that. The Wakandan people are there too.
Yes.
And then Captain Marvel is going up against Thanos, and this is when he headbutts her, and she just stands there staring at him.
Yeah, he full on with all of his might headbutts her to the face, and she doesn't even flinch, blink, nothing. Just kind of looks at him like, really?
Yeah, but then like 30 seconds later, she gets punched out of the movie.
Yeah. He uses the Power Stone on the end of his fist and hits her, and then we don't see her again.
Right.
But right after that is another great scene, because Scarlet Witch coming back, because the only person in all of this that was destroyed by that doesn't come back is Vision, because he wasn't dusted. He was killed by Thanos before the dusting happens, when he ripped out the Mind Stone. So Vision's dead. That was the love of her life. So she's just messing him up, and it's like, you took everything from me. And she's just beating him. He's like, I don't even know who you are.
Well, and this is an important note, because a lot of people don't know that in the MCU, Scarlet Witch is the most powerful mutant in existence, rivaling Dark Phoenix, because she can alter reality.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, she had lost Vision and her babies, and she altered reality and fucked everything in the comic book line.
Yeah, she there's the one timeline where she gets rid of all mutants.
Yes.
So in the comic book, her and her brother are not creations of Von Stricker.
Right.
They are the son and daughter of Magneto.
Right.
So the Quicksilver that's in the X-Men movies would have a sister that's magical.
Right.
Because he in Apocalypse is trying to tell Magneto that you're my dad. And that's the Quick. I think that's why they killed Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, because they probably were already in the works of buying up the rights to X-Men.
Probably. Now, I have a line written down, and I can't remember what it's about. It says, you missed the first time, got them both second time. It was battle. It was before the women.
Yeah.
And it was after Rescue. It was before you saw the women. And I think it was Rescue saying that to Spider-Man. I can't remember. I just liked it. So now Thanos has the glove. He's got all the stones. And people are wrestling with him, trying to take the glove off. This is when Captain Marvel gets punched out of the movie. Yeah. And Iron Man is holding the glove, but the glove gets ripped from him. And Thanos stands up with the glove and snaps. And nothing happens. And he's looking at his hand like, what the fuck? And then it pans over to Iron Man. Or no, before he does that, before he snaps, he looks at Iron Man and says, I'm inevitable. Whatever. How do you pronounce that? Inevitable. Thank you.
Inevitable.
And then he snaps, and then it pans over to Iron Man, whose hand is glowing. And now you see that the stones are all part of his armor. He had pulled them off when he was wrestling to get the glove. And he says, I am Iron Man. And then he snaps. But my notes on this was, you know what made that so much more powerful? Is after he says, I am Iron Man, all of a sudden you go, that would have been awesome, but they didn't do it.
Right.
Throw in some Black Sabbath right there. It would have been so fucking powerful. So then Thanos is just like, and he watches as his whole army turns to dust. Everything around him turns to dust, and then he turns to dust.
Yes. And then Tony, it messes him up.
Yeah.
It messes him. I mean, because we've seen what it did to a Titan.
Yeah.
Fingers. And so Tony's just a human in a suit.
Right.
So he crawls off to the side, and he's laying there, and Peter Parker's like doing the whole role reversal thing when he's trying to console Tony as he's dying. Then Pepper has a really great line. It's like, it's okay. It's okay now. You don't have to worry about us anymore.
Yeah, you can rest now.
Yeah. So,
man, that was touching. That got the feelers going again.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I mean, I was choked up. I mean, there were people actually crying next to me when it happened. Which, I mean, a lot of the theater was crying. I mean, I teared up.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, it was such. I mean, the one thing we haven't talked about is all the relationships that have constantly built from movie to movie to movie to movie between all of these people. I mean, it was like 2 movies ago, Iron Man and Captain America were beating the fuck out of each other over, Winter Soldier.
Yeah, and
that was Civil War.
Yeah, Civil War, and part of it was Tony ends up being right in the whole Civil War thing, because he said then that the world needed a suit of armor because he saw what was out there. But it was a play on, do we give up our personal liberties for protection? And it's kind of without getting political, that's kind of where we're at with our privacy online. It's like, how much do we want to give up to, anyway, enough of that shit. But Tony was right, because we needed a suit of armor to protect us from Thanos. We may have been able to have an early warning detection system knowing that, but they didn't have, other planets didn't have, like the Avengers, and we had Hulk being able to snap and bring everybody back, which is a point that's missed a lot in this movie, is that the Hulk is the one that brought everybody back. Tony just got rid of the bad guys.
Right.
Flipped it and reversed it.
And, I mean, Hulk even said, I tried to bring her back, and he was referencing Black Widow.
Yes.
So now Tony, his chest light goes out. Tony is now dead. Iron Man is no more. And sad pandas everywhere. So then we flash to we go to his funeral scene next, correct?
Yeah, there's one thing in there that during the whole war, though, that I wanted to bring up that I thought was great. Thor is there, and and one of them he's got Stormbreaker, and the other one's got Mjolnir. He's like, no, you take the small one. So he gives Captain the hammer, so he takes the axe.
And I want to point out something else, because I've heard some people say, Cap had Mjolnir for like 2 seconds and already knew how to use it and used it better than Thor. Captain America was trained in every fighting style imaginable.
Right. And
it wouldn't take him longer than 2 seconds to master it.
Not only that, and just being worthy gives you the power of Thor.
Right.
So
now,
just being worthy enough to have the hammer gave you the ability to wield it.
Right. Now, something my son brought up that I kind of agree with, when someone wields Mjolnir, it puts them in their fit, top fighting shape. Thor wouldn't have been fat Thor anymore.
Probably not, no.
Captain America would have had super strength.
Yes.
The ability to fly. All that stuff.
Exactly. There's a lot of abilities that he would have gained by having the ability to use it more than just having lightning. But he also, at one point, says, finally, we got it teased, but he finally gets to say, Avengers, assemble.
Right.
That is where I started weeping.
Yep. Yep, that got me too.
Turn on the waterworks. Here it comes. I've been waiting. I mean, they teased it once, and I was pissed that they shut it off as Avengers, click. And I was pissed at that moment. But when he said it this time, and then the huge fight starts, I've been waiting for that moment to see it real and a good quality version of it on the big screen since I was a lad.
Right. Yeah, same here. And then, so we go to Tony's funeral, and everybody's there. It flashes through, and I felt stupid because there's one lone guy standing there towards the end of the line as, they're scanning through the people that are attending his funeral. And it's one lone kid. He's probably like, maybe 19, 20.
Yeah.
And I look at my son. I'm like, who the hell is that? He's
Before
like,
you say who he was, I did the same thing. I'm like, who the fuck's that? And then keep going because he's between like the Guardians of the Galaxy and then the SHIELD agents. Like,
right.
He's standing by himself like, who the fuck's that random dude? And my son's like, who? My son wasn't even paying attention. He didn't even see the dude. He was like looking at everything else.
Right.
And I had to go home and look it up, but your son says.
Yeah, he's like, that's Harley, the kid from Iron Man 3, who saved Tony Stark in his garage, and they built up the armor and all that shit.
He gave him his sister's watch.
Yep. And so then it pans over to God, what's the actor's name? Tony Stark's right-hand man.
Oh, you're talking about Jon Favreau.
Yeah, Favreau. Happy's sitting there with Morgan, Stark's daughter. And he's like, how you feeling? She's like, she's sad, but she's young, so she doesn't really know how to handle this. And I thought they handled that part good.
Mm-hmm.
Because a 5-year-old doesn't know how to handle this stuff.
Right.
And they don't really understand what's going on. So,
exactly.
So he's sitting there with her. He's like, well, do you want anything? She's like, I want a cheeseburger. He's like, I'll buy you all the cheeseburgers in the world. And this is a shout out back to the original Iron Man when he gets out of the desert and comes home. And he's on the airplane coming back, and they're like, can we get you anything? He's like, man, I want a cheeseburger.
I want a cheeseburger.
And when he gets back, he's talking to everybody just mowing down on cheeseburgers. And
that's when he sits down at the podium.
Yep.
Can we just all sit down? Can we just all sit down?
Because I miss these things, man. But yeah, so the funeral scene was powerful, but that moment with Happy and Morgan was just, that was just heart-wrenching, man.
Yeah.
Happy's like, man, you're mine now. I'm not letting anything happen to you. I failed your dad. I let him die, but you're not going anywhere.
And I think him and Pepper become an item later.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
And then after that, we flash back to Hulk, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Falcon.
Yeah.
And because they got to take the stones back so that the timelines aren't fucked up. And they're arguing over who's going to do it. And Captain America's like, I'm doing it. That's it. Hands down. Nothing else. And so they're like, okay. And, they're like, well, how long is he going to be gone? And he's like, well, for him, it's going to take as long as it takes. But for us, it's going to be 5 seconds. So they power it up. They're like, all right, you ready, Cap? He's like, yeah, I'm ready. So they zap him out. He's gone. And they're like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And they hit the button. Nothing. Hit the button. Nothing. Like, where the hell is Cap? Cap's not back. And then Winter Soldier is like, Sam. And he kind of nods over the direction. And you see the back of this bench with an old guy sitting there with this oddly rounded shaped briefcase next to him.
Yeah.
He walks over and he sees his face, this wizened old man who all of a sudden has a wedding ring on. And he's like, Cap? He's like, hey, Sam, how you doing? He's like, you didn't come back. He's like, no, I went out and lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, go ahead.
So an Easter egg about that is the jacket that he's wearing when he's sitting on that bench is the same jacket that little Steve was wearing before he went into the army and was getting beat up in the alleyway.
Yep.
It's the same jacket.
Is that a members only jacket?
It looks like it, but a lot older. But and the cool thing about this is they do kind of like a flashback of him dancing with Agent Carter. So we know that he went back. He got that dance that said he had to put on hold. And when he did wake up out of the ice, she was too old to dance. So
I've heard some other theories on this too about how in the one movie where he goes and sees Peggy when she's basically on her deathbed, and she's like, "Oh, Steve," and they talk a little bit, and she had grew up and she had gotten married. She'd had a family. Mm-hmm. Well, the theory is it's him that she married and had a family with.
Yeah.
Because he had gone back at the end of this, he went back in time and did all that.
Right.
So, it's really cool. And then, so he picks up that oddly shaped round briefcase and hands it to Sam, says, here, this is yours now. And hands him the shield, which is a nod to the comic books because Falcon becomes the next Captain America.
Yes. There were a couple Captain Americas, but Falcon was the next one. And rumor is that Disney streaming is going to have that story.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, I guess we got. Let's finish this up, and then I got a couple of nods I want to throw about.
Well, now, we talked about. Okay, the movie's over. This is the end of the movie. Yeah. There was nothing in the post-credits, nothing else. This is just basically how the movie ended.
And everybody that went to see that movie watched all the way to the end to see the screen go dark and the lights come on in the theater and went, well, that sucked. But there's nothing to tease.
I didn't because my son had already seen it. So when the credits started rolling, I'm like, is it over? Is there anything? He's like, no, there's nothing. I'm like, okay, cool. So we laughed.
So you beat the traffic.
Right. So now, people are talking, we talked about, okay, there's going to be a Black Widow series, whatever. Mm-hmm. And, like, you and I talked about it, you're like, oh, it's going to be a prequel. That's the theory now, is a prequel. But I have a theory that they could do more than a prequel. They could actually bring her back. Because when Tony snapped and eliminated Thanos and everything else, this is how they could do it. Is when he snapped, he wished Black Widow back in existence, and he died, so therefore it was a soul for a soul.
True.
And there's your opening. You're welcome, Disney. Take that. Bring Scarlett Johansson back when she wants to come back, and give us some more Black Widow because she's fucking awesome.
Or part 2 to that is when they took the Soul Stone, they got there before Gamora was sacrificed. Therefore, right. Black Widow was sacrificed. When Cap brings it back, he brings it back before she dies. Or so it brings back, so this, that doesn't work anyway. Never mind.
Oh, you know what? We did miss a good part because when Peter Quill runs into Gamora again.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And he's like, "You're here," and he's touched her, and she's like, she swatted him away or something, and walks out with Nebula. And she walks out with Nebula, and she's like, "Really? I chose him?" She's like, "It was that or a tree."
Yeah, it was him or a tree. Not even acknowledging that Drax was even there.
Right. Yeah.
So some of the other things that kind of that could come out of this was when Black Widow was sitting at the desk and we had the same hologram style conference thing that they did in Winter Soldier with the world leaders.
Right.
Okura says, I think I pronounced that right. The Wakanda lady.
Okoye,
thank you. She says something about earthquakes off the coast of Africa. And Black Widow says, "What are we doing about that?" And she's like, "Nothing. They're earthquakes." But that is speculation that is the opening of bringing out the Submariner.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So that would be awesome.
Yes.
And now this next phase that they're doing is there's going to be supposedly everything I say is everything that I've heard and read other people talk about, and they know about as much as you guys listening to this. You probably know more than I do, but what they're saying is there's going to be 2 different storylines that are going. There's going to be Earthbound, which essentially sounds like it's going to be more centered on the Disney streaming.
Yeah.
And the movies themselves are going to be more galactic, more.
Yeah.
So you'll have more. You have the Asgardians of the galaxy out there riding around with them.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that part, but that doesn't matter. These people saw the movie; they know what it happened.
And then they have to bring in Nova, which they've talked about the Nova Corps so much that they have to bring in Nova.
And it better be the Rich Rider Nova.
Right. And Adam Warlock has already been teased.
He's been teased for years now.
Yes. So, and then there's talk of if they lead up to the Secret Wars, then you'll have the Beyonder, you'll have this all the Celestials, which we've already met 1.5 of.
Right. We already met Ego.
Yes.
And the Living Planet, and
then when they talked about the Infinity Stones for the Collector talks about it, he shows another Celestial using the Power Stone to decimate a world.
Right.
And they've talked about the staff of the Living Tribunal. So they've mentioned the Living Tribunal, but they haven't actually shown him yet. So there's speculation that could be on the horizon. And then the biggest one out there that needs to be done and done properly is Galactus.
And Silver Surfer.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, they tried it with Fantastic Four, failed miserably.
Yes.
The Silver Surfer wasn't bad, but the Galactus part was.
Yes. He's not a cloud.
Right.
He's not a cloud. He has a big ship the size of the solar system.
Yep. But yeah, they that opens them up. Plus, I mean, we got the Skrulls in Captain America or Captain Marvel, but there's also the Kree, which we get in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they went into the future.
And we met Ronan.
Yep.
In Guardians.
Yep. So I mean, we got the Kree, we got that, but there's also the Shi'ar, because Professor X was married to Lilandra, the queen of the Shi'ar. But there's all these different space factions that we could go to.
And Annihilus would be a great villain. there's speculation that Kang the Conqueror is going to make an appearance in that shortly.
And they're talking about redoing the Inhumans too.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had that short-lived TV series that sucked. Don't watch it.
Pretend like that didn't exist. But yeah, there's so some of the movies that have been teased that are coming out. Obviously, there's the Black Widow movie. There's Captain Marvel 2. There's the third. We already know there's a third Guardians movie because James Gunn was rehired.
Yep.
To direct that. There's the Black Panther second movie, which the first teaser icon that I've seen for the thing also had the name Moon Knight attached to it.
Yes, love Moon Knight.
Which would be awesome. If you don't know Moon Knight, he's Marvel's Batman,
right? With
ancient mystical Egyptian powers,
right? And if you don't know Namor, who we named earlier, he's Marvel's Aquaman, but he was out first. They stole Aquaman from Marvel from Namor.
Yeah. The Aquaman from the DC movies is closer to the Aquaman that talks to fish that you know from the cartoon, the Justice League. The Aquaman that Jason Momoa plays is more the Namor character,
right,
from Marvel. So they kind of took elements from that, but I think that's why Marvel had pumped the brakes on trying to bring him out, because he's also the arch enemy starts off being an enemy of Wakanda, and he's a big Black Panther enemy. So maybe we'll see him in the Pink Panther. I almost said the Pink Panther movie. But maybe we'll see Namor in the Black Panther movie.
Right. Namor is like the anti-hero. I mean, the whole premise of Namor is he's the Prince of Atlantia, something like that. And he's tired of the surface dwellers dumping their shit in the water and all that other stuff. So he attacks them.
Yeah.
So he's kind of the anti-hero. He's actually a hero to his people, but not to ours.
Yeah, he's Magneto. Magneto's a hero to his cause is just if you are a mutant, but if you're not a mutant, he's a terrorist.
Right. So yeah, that's the whole Namor premise. I mean, he was actually introduced back during World War II because he was part of the squad that I can't remember the name of them, but it was him, the original Human Torch, which wasn't the Fantastic Four one. He was more of an android. Mm-hmm. And a couple other people. I think Captain America was part of it too. Some sort of squad, and they fought against the Nazis.
Right.
And then he, after that, spread out, and he's been a nemesis and a friend to the Fantastic Four for years. He has kind of a little love interest with Susan Richards, and sometimes she reciprocates, sometimes not so much.
Right.
But yeah, there's so many places they can go, and it's just boundless, and that's just it. There is enough material to never stop making this stuff.
And the cool thing about it too is they haven't even introduced the concept of multiverse.
Right.
Kind of did a little bit in Doctor Strange, but they can expand on it because there's like the Earth 616, and then there's the upstarted MCU. There's the zombie world. There's so many different just universes,
right,
that they can go to.
Right.
So,
yeah. So, all right. Well, we've been doing this for about 2 hours. So, basically, summed up, we just reviewed Endgame, y'all. Spoiler alert.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess we probably should have mentioned that, but I think according to etiquette, we're fine now because it's been out long enough.
Well, also, since the title of this is Avengers Endgame Review,
yeah,
obviously there's going to be fucking spoilers in it. So if you haven't watched the movie and you watched all of this, yeah, I don't know.
I think the title might be spoilers, yo.
Right.
So, all right. With that, follow us on. You can email us at thebunnyrabbitshole@gmail.com. You can follow us at the Bunny's Hole on Twitter and Instagram. Please tell all your friends on any podcast app that you use. We're pushing Podcoin right now because we really like that app ourselves. And go to our website, thebunnyrabbitshole.com.
And go to our YouTube channel, The Bunny Rabbit's Hole, all one word. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, share us with your friends, share us with your enemies.
And leave some comments there. We like to respond.
I love talking to people.
All right. So with that, I'm going to say insert tagline here.
Love you guys. Peace out.
All right. Peace out, everybody.